You know, I still remember that morning like it was yesterday, the kind of day that starts with birds chirping and ends with your whole world turned upside down. I rolled out of bed to this go-doffel roar right outside my window. Not some far-off construction buzz, but chainsaws gnawing away like they own the place. There I was, stumbling onto the porch in my ratty old pajamas, staring at these four burly guys hacking into the maple trees my late wife Emily had planted with her own hands back when we first moved in. Those big, shady beasts that had watched over our little corner of Willow Creek Meadows in Michigan for nearly 35 years. And there she was, directing the whole mess from her shiny black SUV. Victoria Langford, our HOA queen bee, smirking like she'd just won the lottery. Little did she know, that smug grin was about to wipe out her bank account, her reputation, and pretty much everything she thought she controlled, because those trees weren't just mine. Chopping them down sparked a wildfire of secrets that burned her little empire to the ground. It all started 3 years back when I, Jack Harlan, a 54-year-old retired mechanic who'd spent decades fixing engines and dreaming of quiet days, finally bought this cozy spot on the edge of the neighborhood, 1.5 acres, with 5 towering maples that whispered memories of Emily every time the wind blew through their leaves. She'd passed from a long battle with illness just 8 months before, and those trees, man, they were her thing. She'd say they were living proof that strength comes from rooting deep and bending with the storms, and I'd sit under them with my coffee, hearing her laugh echo in the branches, feeling like maybe paradise wasn't so far off after all. Victoria sold me the house herself, all polished smiles and that fake southern charm. Oh, Jack, darling, I'm the HOA president too, but don't worry, we're all about community harmony here. Yeah, that should have been my first clue, her cruising around in that SUV with a vanity plate screaming Queen V, always eyeing my yard like it personally offended her. Things heated up slow at first, like a pot simmering before it boils over. She'd swing by during her power walks, clipboard in hand, perfume thick enough to choke a horse. Jack, honey, those maples are blocking the pond views for the fancy folks across the way. And I'd push back. They were here when I bought the place from you, remember? Her eyes would narrow just a tad, that cold flicker behind the smile, muttering about property values and standards evolving. Then came the nitpicky violations piling up like junk mail, grass a quarter-inch too tall, fence paint not the approved shade of beige, even my bird feeder labeled a visual nuisance, each one slapping me with $75 daily fines and appeals. Forget it. Her puppet board of scared old-timers wouldn't look me in the eye as they rubber-stamped her nonsense. Deep down, I knew it wasn't about rules. It was personal. Victoria had her claws in those pond-front mansions, flipping properties and pocketing commissions, and my trees? They ruined the million-dollar vistas she promised her rich buddies, turning her into this petty tyrant hell-bent on breaking me, all while hiding her own dirty deals. But here's where it gets interesting. Us mechanics, we're wired to fix things, dig under the hood until we find the leak. So while she played neighborhood dictator, I started my own quiet war, poring over old deeds and HOA docs late at night under those very maples, laptop glowing like a campfire, realizing her power was mostly smoke and mirrors. One evening, after she'd sent a phony tree expert to call my healthy giants hazards waiting to fall, I checked his credentials. Guy was unlicensed, busted for fake reports before, and that's when the dominoes started tumbling. I recorded our chats too, legal in Michigan, catching her slipping about those views paying my bills. Oh, the irony. Then came the real bombshell. Pulling county records, I found my lot stretched 20 feet further toward the pond than the stakes showed, meaning her cronies' fancy decks and gardens were squatting on my dirt, probably shifted during some shady landscaping upgrades years back. When I confronted her lackey, old Mr. Ellis from the board, he broke like cheap glass. Victoria said you'd sell cheap if we pushed hard enough, promised it'd boost our retirements. And suddenly, her game wasn't just bullying. It was a full-on scam, forcing folks out to snatch undervalued homes for her real estate side hustle. The breaking point hit like a thunderclap. She timed it perfect, knowing I'd be out of town for my son's wedding rehearsal. Calling in her crew at dawn with forged emergency papers and a deputy she'd sweet-talked into overseeing the safety op. I canceled the trip last minute, heart pounding, and burst out as the chainsaws revved. Stop. This is my land. The foreman shrugged, Lady said it's urgent, got the sign off. But that deputy, Ramirez, went pale when I showed the real boundaries, realizing they'd crossed into felony territory, shredding not just my maples, but Emily's carved heart trunk where we'd whispered promises and later, where I'd scattered her ashes. The air reeked of fresh sap and diesel, sawdust swirling like snow in hell. And in that gut-wrench moment, grief crashing over me like a wave I swore she'd pay, not just for the trees worth $75,000 to replace, but for turning my sanctuary into a stump-filled graveyard. From there, it was all-out counterstrike. I lawyered up with Alex Rivera, a bulldog attorney who lived for HOA takedowns, and we unearthed the motherlode. Victoria's HOA hadn't renewed its legal status 2 years running, making every fine she'd collected pure extortion. Over $280,000 funneled straight to her Langford Realty accounts for services that never happened: fake audits, phantom repairs. Even her spa weekends billed as community retreats. Deeper still, her own pondfront palace, built on what should have been shared green space from the 90s development flop. Bankruptcy papers buried with a $20,000 bribe to the old developer's lawyer she'd known all along, using her presidency to squash any audits that might expose her squatting on $750,000 of community land. We rallied the neighbors, Ellis spilling more beans about her past cons in nearby towns, families bankrupted, and homes flipped for profit, and hit her with a barrage: lawsuits for damages, fraud referrals to the DA, even environmental claims, since those maples stabilized a protected wetland edge, triggering federal heat. Victoria fought dirty, of course, tried selling her mansion quick, but we froze it with an injunction. Posted online smears calling me a bitter loner undermining values, only for folks to flood the comments with their own horror tales, turning her into the neighborhood pariah. Her biggest blunder? That emergency HOA meeting she called to dissolve everything and shred evidence. I stood up mid-rant, evidence stack in hand. Before you vote to erase your crimes, Victoria, explain why you're living rent-free on our land while bleeding us dry, she snapped, face twisting. You ungrateful fools don't get it. I've elevated this place. Even if it took some creative moves, right there, in front of 40 witnesses, a Fed agent scribbling notes, and phones recording, she confessed to the whole racket. Handcuffs clicking as they hauled her out, her empire crumbling like those felled trees. 6 months on, standing by the pond at what we turned into the Emily Harlan Community Park, her old house raised for picnic spots and a playground. Funded by the recovered cash, I watched kids swing under new saplings we planted together, each family adding one with a plaque about resilience. Victoria pleaded out to avoid 15 years, lost it all, slinging ethics classes in some Florida strip mall now, while we passed local laws cracking down on HOA crooks, helping other neighborhoods reclaim their turf. It's funny how loss can seed something stronger. Those maples gone, but Emily's spirit? It's in every leaf rustling here, in neighbors finally talking over fences instead of hiding. But hey, was I too harsh, dragging it all public? Or did she deserve every bit? Drop a comment. What's your wildest HOA clash? And do you think folks like her ever learn? Or is it just karma catching up? Smash like if this hit home. Subscribe for more real deal stories where everyday underdogs flip the script. And share if you've got a tale that needs telling. Who knows? Yours might be next.